Tumble Track is having 10% off a camp countdown sale. This includes laser beams, the most important thing for you to have in your gym. Visit TumbleTrack at tumbletrack.com, TUMBLTRAK, tumbletrack.com. Train smart.
Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
To a sitting position on the other side of the beam. That could literally have counted as her full turn skill at Elite, because you can do a roll of any kind now. You don't have to do a full turn on one foot, sideways, forward, backwards, any kind of roll. I was like, this is amazing. If you could do that with straight legs, the FIG would take it in a minute. Today, everything that happened at NCAA championships, who's getting the Georgia head coaching job, final Paris World Cup qualifiers have been announced. It's over. We have the people who qualified through the World Cup, and a huge Department of Justice settlement with survivors. It's April 23rd, 2024, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Olivia Karas, Michigan great, who is one of those gymnasts who built a program, and then the program won after she graduated. So she's going to have thoughts on LSU like I did for all of those gymnasts that built that program up, because we thought they were going to win for so many years and they placed second. Spencer will hopefully be well enough to join me on Saturday live after the American Classic. So this is featuring Gabby Douglas, as in a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, Gabby Douglas, 2012 London all-around champion, Gabby Douglas. Finally, we're going to see her. Didn't see her at Winter Cup. Also, Jade is going to compete. Jade Carey, Morgan State. Joss Robertson is competing. So you can get details at USA Gymnastics, or you can watch, of course, on Flip Now. So when that is done, we'll do our episode live. Club Gym Nerd members can join us live, and that will probably be our episode for the week, because that's my only chance to take a day off between now and a week off between now and the Olympics. So that's probably what we're going to do. So some headlines. Let's start with what happened as soon as NCAAs ended and we came back. So Kupets is out after 7 seasons. 7 seasons. Georgia head coach, Courtney Kupets, Olympian, Georgia gymnastics great, NCAA champion a bazillion times. She's done.
GymTernet was on fire. What did you hear about Jay Clark?
Yeah, so starting Sunday, first of all, we heard, as we talked about on our live, Georgia announced that Kupets was gone before NCAA finals, which I felt like was totally strategic, which is why I thought that they were trying to get an LSU coach, because I was like, oh, you do that because you're trying to sabotage / lower the price in case LSU wins. So we started hearing that Jay was going to Georgia, that he had reconciled with Suzanne Yockland because he had, taken over for her, and then they let him go. And it was, very painful because he's like a 700 generation Georgia alum and all this stuff, and had been there for a long time. So then we started hearing that, he maybe wasn't going, and Georgia was trying to sweeten the pot. So my sources were saying, it's up to $1.2 million that they're offering. And that was for the whole staff, not just for him personally. Although I think the basketball coach at LSU, I think, makes $3 million. So I don't see why the gymnastics coach shouldn't make, at least that much. Then I heard it was up to 1.5, and then finally 2 million. And it was like a 24-hour or 2 million for the whole staff over like a couple of years. It wasn't just like, come here and we'll immediately give you a check for $1 million. No, it's a contract over a certain amount of years to bring the whole staff with him, and then divide it as he wanted. So 24 hours to decide. And I really was like, oh, he's going to do it because he got divorced last year. And I feel like, I feel like we talked about this on our live right after finals, like that he has softened a little bit. I feel like, getting a divorce after however 20, 30 years really changes a person. And I was like, okay, maybe he's ready to go back to Georgia. He's ready for a change. And, he's a Georgia alum. Also, LSU is in Cancer Alley. Had you ever heard of Cancer Alley in Louisiana before?
No, I'm intrigued and concerned.
Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing. I don't know if you guys listened back in, I think it was 2017 when USA Gymnastics had their camp at LSU. I remember talking about like the smell driving from the airport to LSU. And I was like, oh my God, it smelled like 1,000 oil refineries were leaking at the same time. Like it was
wow.
strong. Well, apparently there's a reason for that because the air pollution from all these petrochemical plants, there's like a huge swath along the river from LSU to New Orleans, I think it is, where it's called Cancer Alley because there's so much cancer because of the air pollution from all these petrochemical plants. And I didn't know LSU was in it. I thought, because once I got to LSU, I didn't smell it anymore. But apparently parts of Baton Rouge are in it, including LSU. So I was like, well, maybe he's like, I was here long enough to get my air pollution. I'm going to go back to the beautiful quaint town.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And I don't know why it came up, but I follow this guy on TikTok and Instagram who's a doctor. He's a medical student now, I think still. But he was talking about environmental racism and how the majority of this population is Black and they are the majority of sufferers from this. And I think people don't talk about environmental racism enough. And so anyway, I always listen to what he's saying, and that's how I found out about it. So anyway, I was like, all right, so LSU is going to, or this is the great thing, Jay's just getting LSU to counter offer with more, because obviously after you win your first ever national championship, then you can be like, oh, leverage. And like the thing that I love about him doing this and not gatekeeping, like he was telling everybody, it's not like they had an NDA with Georgia that he couldn't tell his offers, but when he's telling everybody the offers and how much is going up, I feel like this benefits all NCAA coaches and also all women, especially because everyone should know what the prices are, what the offers are, what your options are, and that everything is a negotiation. Like I didn't learn that growing up, that you could always negotiate your salary. Did you learn that?
No, I mean, I've now been in 2 separate 9-to-5 corporate jobs. And I have always been really scared to ever say, I would do it for X money instead of X amount of money. Like that to me felt greedy, as opposed to it's actually my right to do that. And yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I hope that more coaches say to their administration, by the way, and don't lie, but by the way, I was approached by X school for X amount of money in an X year contract. Like I would love to not move my family. I would love to stay here and do what we're doing. Perhaps there might be a gym in the works or whatever, wherever the situation is, and just say, I'd love to stay, match it or give me more. And I think I don't know this for certain, but I bet football, basketball, hockey, and baseball do this. So why can't gymnastics say, we're in high demand, give us more money?
Exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like him doing this, it helps all the coaches, and it's a lesson for all gymnasts. I mean, hopefully they're getting this from their NIL agents that yes, we will negotiate for you. Here's how you negotiate, but it's great. Right. Yeah. So the one thing that I think we know now that because Garrett, Mr. McCool, tweeted basically a little tiger emoji and a house that, they're staying. This is what
but people are saying the tiger was away from the house, so they're walking away. I was like, oh my God. Now we're playing Where's Waldo, honestly. We are just dissecting. And could you imagine if emojis allowed you to flip the tiger? You can't do that. So I don't think he was sitting there going, the tiger's the other way. And everyone's like, oh my God. But I don't know. I mean, people love to dissect things. So who knows?
This is the great thing about diving into this so much. I was saying yesterday, I was just I've been waiting for this day for so long for gymnastics to get to the level all the other sports are, because you're being treated like real coaches, treated like this stuff happens all the time in the major sports. And I love that this is going on. So yeah, I think Mr. McCool tweeted that, they're staying effectively. But before that, I had heard they had moved on from Jay. So my sources right now are telling me that Jordan is possibly in the works, pending whatever her contract with Arkansas says. That but I don't know if she wants to leave because they've treated her so well. I don't know. It's I think some people aren't motivated by money in the way that other people are, especially with Jordan. I think she's fine, but it does help everybody when you get a big salary. I would be shocked if Cal wasn't in, the Cal coaches weren't in the conversation, because obviously, like you said on the live, Liv, that's coaching. They went from 50th to 2nd in 7 years. Yeah.
A little more than that. what was it, 2012, they were 50th. So 12 years, but still, I mean, 7 years into it, they were significantly higher up than 50th.
Yeah, it's major. And then, yeah, I've heard Ashley Miles at Iowa State is in the conversation. And I think that, I mean, she's done a lot at Iowa State, but I also think because Georgia getting an Alabama legend as their head coach, I mean, that like, you know about the rivalry things. You talked about the Ohio State, the Weedatard school. That's what our listeners know it as. It's the Buckeye.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
The Weedatard. That's the school we're talking about, you guys. Ohio State. But yeah, that would be like a big coup.
Yeah. I guess it's a big coup, but it's also like, but what if you go there and you make it great? And it's like, if anyone knows that Friends reference.
She just put her wrists together. Like who does it in Friends? It's like
Ross does it in Friends.
Ross does it. It's like an FU, but not an FU without doing the FU.
Exactly.
It's a Ross FU.
It could be. It could be that. Like if you think about Ashley Miles in a world, she would go to Georgia and like crushed it. Dang. Then you're Bama thinking, oopsie.
Maybe we should have hired her. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it is interesting. I think you can play the rival game in whatever perspective you want to put it in. But at first glance, you're like, never. I would never do that. But it is interesting.
I can also see why Jay decided to stay because honestly, like as long as they give you close to what you're asking for, he can, all these seniors might have 5th years left to come back. There are some that I think are definitely coming back. Like Haley Bryant tweeted, like in 7 to 8 business days, you'll know the answer to the big question. I'm like, yes, of course you're going to come back for another year. And then you almost have guaranteed.
About her. Yeah.
You're what?
I like.
Really?
I am. Do I want her to come back selfishly? Duh. I mean, that vault, I'm not done with not seeing that vault. I'm not done with not seeing her. But my gosh, you win the AAI award, you win the all-around, you win the team title, and now you're a finalist for the Honda Award. I'd cut the grips and call it a day. I mean, like, that is pretty legendary. Like, that's a true definition of a mic drop. Like, it's like incredible. I also see, I don't know Haley well. I know her well enough to know she has a good head on her shoulders. And I could see her going, I'm very satisfied with this. I have an idea of what I want to do after. It's not locked and loaded. Like I don't have a job offer in hand, but I know what I may want to do and I'm ready to do that. She could also in 5 to 8 business days say, I'm done. And in 3 months, pull an Abbey High School and go, oopsies, I'm back. Because getting into a grad program or deciding you miss it so much, like things could happen. So I actually, money. she's in well, right now with NIL. So she's an enigma to me. I don't know. I could see it going both ways, but if she does come back, I truly hope, and I think she will, views it as a full-blown victory lap with no expectations because of how her senior year ended. Because it was just like the peak of the mountain. And this would just be an extra year of fun. And of course, with NIL, sometimes you could receive offers that are very hard to turn down. So we'll see.
I think, yeah. I mean, do you think the pressure to come back for the team, because it's going to be like maybe so easy to win next time? I mean, Oklahoma are the only ones that can take themselves out, but
right.
Team pressure.
I don't know. I mean, that team seems very close to me. I understand that like perception is reality to a certain degree. And so we actually don't know how close the team is or if they bond together for meets and the vibes aren't that great outside of the gym. We have no idea. To me, it does seem very authentic. And I wonder if she would get pressure or if it would be more of, I'm not done experiencing this type of camaraderie. I don't know. But to your point, they do have a pretty good squad coming in. They have the opportunity for athletes to return. However, I look back on the Michigan situation and I go, you could dream and dream and dream and things could just not work out the way you want them to. You never know. I mean, it's gymnastics. We never know. So I actually have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do in the situation. but I don't know.
And speaking of the NIL money, I did ask Jay Clark in the press conference specifically why. I was like, a lot of people were afraid of NIL and said it was going to change the sport and it's not going to be the same. We talked about that with Tasha Schweigert and Josie, the episode where we previewed NCAAs. And so I asked him about it. You know, it seems like you guys have embraced it and here you are winning with that attitude. And his quote to me was, I did joke with Liv one other time that when she wasn't doing well one day, how do you want me to handle this since you make 10 times what I make, unquote. Which I love his attitude about that. And I think people have been kind of shocked that I've been like more positive on Jay Clark. And let me be very clear with this. I clearly do not agree with his politics. I've seen his Facebook page. We are not on the same page. I mentioned him on Twitter, got nothing but Trump ads after that. I was like, freaking Elon, how dare you do this to my Twitter feed? So we clearly don't agree on politics, but I think you can tell the team respects him. And I think you can see how there's a lot of gymnasts who have lost a parent who have done very well there and seem very happy and have like thrived. So I think there is a certain gymnast where this is the right home for them and they thrive. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who knows Savannah Shane here a good amount and comes from a family with a gay dad and a gay brother, you see her as an outwardly gay woman who is at this school and seems very comfortable with her teammates and with her coaches and happy. And that's all you could ever want. And so regardless of if people might not agree with his political stance or whatnot, at least it's evident that he's able to put that aside for the sake of his student athletes and their happiness. And from someone who comes from a family who's experienced that, I can see from an outside perspective that she's definitely comfortable. And, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but she seems happy. And I think that's all that matters. So I'm happy to see that from a fan and media perspective where it could be totally different.
So I want to talk a little bit about, while we're waiting to find out who gets a Georgia job, which now I think is going to take a little longer to find out. I want to talk about the Olympic qualifiers. So we had the final World Cups. So this is it. The way to qualify via World Cups is over. It's done. The final one happened, concluded, end of story. This isn't the final spots. We still have some the tripartite spots. We still have some countries that get to assign their gymnasts to go. And then we have the continental championships still to happen. So, but World Cup wise, if you were trying to go on an event or all around, this is it. So, or event specifically. So the final spots are going to vault, as I predicted. First of all, North Korea, Anchang, obviously she's going, and Valentina Georgieva of Bulgaria. You remember her when she hit her vault last World Cup and dropped down into a superhero make a muscle pose. We love her. She's also made it. It's great to see Bulgaria there too, because they used to be such a powerhouse. On bars, Georgia Rose Brown, now representing New Zealand, has qualified, and Levi Jung-Ruivivar, representing the Philippines, has qualified to Paris, which is huge. I think we were all kind of watching the Emma Malabuyo pathway to Paris and thought she was going to get it for beam, especially. So to see Levi, whose bars are so beautiful, I call her ballerina on the bars because her form is just stunning. Like, if you liked Nastia on bars, like times that by 1,000, like divided by Lily Smith and LaCourcier from Alabama. That is the kind of bars that she does. It's gorgeous. Also, I think this is, again, though, I feel like Georgia Rose Brown making it for New Zealand is kind of I'm like subtweeting at New Zealand here being like, okay, so she's now qualified through the World Cup. Why didn't you let Courtney McGregor, who's the best gymnast you've ever had, compete for a spot at the continental spot? Because now I don't think they have a gymnast who's going to be able to qualify that spot. So they could have had 2 gymnasts from New Zealand at the Olympics, and now they have 1. I mean, so anyway, that's my question about that. Beam, Nina Durwell from Belgium. She pretty much had that locked up. And great for her because she's such an incredible gymnast, obviously the Olympic champion on bars, but had her shoulder dislocations. But she will be there. And remember, Olympics is opposite of NCAA. So NCAA, you qualify on an event, you're stuck there. Don't you dare touch any of their equipment. You qualified on bars, you don't compete on anything else. FIG and the Olympics are the opposite. So Nina Derwell qualified on beam. She can do all the events or she can do one. It's totally up to her. So for shoulders ready, she could be back on bars. And then the other gymnast who qualified is Tinghua Tin, also made it, doing some beautiful beams. So what the thing that I have to say about Emma Malabuyo not qualifying is I just think like it was so great to see her pursue this dream at the same time as she was doing this. I mean, we've seen gymnasts kind of like go to camp at the same time that they are competing in college, or they leave and then they compete the season and they leave again. But for her to do it concurrently, like, can you imagine doing that, Liv?
No, I can't. Like, even when she posted on her Instagram story that she was on an airplane on her way to compete, like right after regionals, I was like, my heart, like my heart, my body, and my mind hurts for you. Like, that is a whole different level of mental toughness and like will and right to do something that you want to do, because I can barely get myself to go downstairs to my 5th floor gym from my 6th floor apartment to like walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh. But no, my heart hurts for her. When the UCLA beam meltdown happened, everyone's thought was the same, was at least Emma gets to go compete for a spot at the Olympics. And I think the whole world is sad for her and it's a bummer, but I'm so happy that she had the chance to pursue that dream and that her coaches and the university allowed her to do that. I mean, I think that's really impressive, and that's a new precedent that's happening that we have not seen in the past. And I like that that's a new trend happening in the college/elite world.
She still has a shot if she goes to the Asian Championship. She could go for all around, but that's much harder, I think. But I think that, Emma Malabuyo, she's already an Olympian. So in the U.S., she's an Olympian, because in the U.S., if you're an alternate, you are an Olympian. But I think it shows, if you forget how incredibly tough the U.S. elites are, Emma Malabuyo is an example. And I love that, like, the elite world got to experience her gymnastics again, because her gymnastics is so dynamic and beautiful. And I feel like this is the way the Women's Technical Committee wants gymnastics to go, like real performance, like it used to be back in the Soviet days. And so I feel like she's bringing that. And if anything, it was reflected in her scores. On floor exercise, so from Austria, Charlize Moores made it, and Laura Casabuena from Spain. And it's just great to see Spain represented again. So, as you know, the show is brought to you by Club Gym Nerd. Club Gym Nerd are paying Spencer's salary while he's out on sick leave. This is so important that you guys are doing this so we can support him while he's sick, because we live in America and you don't, you have to pay for your insurance privately by yourself. So in addition to this Saturday after American Classic with Gabby Douglas, we also have a bunch of content coming up for you, including, so this week, American Classic. Then we have the U.S. Classic in Connecticut. Then we have U.S. Championships, then the Olympic trials. Then I will be in Paris live. We will also have a live show at the U.S. Olympic trials. We'll have a live show in Paris. And then the Pro League starts. So remember that if you're a Club Gym, remember you get an extra podcast every single week. And when we're at these competitions, we will have live shows right after those competitions conclude. You can also get a discount on live show tickets, lots of stuff. And we have merch. So if you want to represent with like a shirt, for example, that says Simone freaking Biles, we have those in our store. You want one of those, Liv. Oh, and hats are coming. Yes, you need one. And hats are coming too. Yes.
I love that.
So now there's even more ways for you to communicate your gym nerdness. Also, we have a NCAA Championships fantasy winner if you played in our fantasy league. Also, shout out to the Wall Street Journal for featuring us and Gymlytics and the business of fantasy gymnastics in the Wall Street Journal. Like, you guys, we've made it. I wish I think it's Kristen Watkins who did the original fantasy. I wish she had been in it too, because we are all on your shoulders, of course. So shout out to her. But our NCAA Championships fantasy winner is Jake Clark's Beam Cup. That's the name of our winner.
So, the world works in beautiful ways.
So you get a mini commission. We'll email you shortly, and there's a little form you fill out. There will be a fantasy game coming up for the US Classic, the one that's in Connecticut and Hartford, and we're doing some upgrades to the platform so look for that. We also have some photo galleries up on the website with nearly 100 photos. And if you like the photos we post, tell the gymnasts that you like them, because some of them I feel like are like embarrassed by their photos. We're like, that's iconic. That's why it's in the gallery. For just accept that you're an icon. This is the thing. Also, our live show guest, if you didn't hear, our secret guest was Kathy Johnson. Kathy Johnson Clark, legend. And so you can still watch the replay until May 3rd. So if you still want to get a virtual ticket and watch, you can. I guarantee there are stories you have never heard before in that. And she talks about the whole year. I'm going to share one tweet about it from Kelsey. She said, I had the most fun at the live show tonight. Loved every minute of Kathy Johnson's stories, and another GymCastic quote t-shirt masterpiece. Vanessa says, this Kathy Johnson interview with GymCastic is fabulous, and it also makes me sad and mad that she didn't get to go out on her own terms. College gymnastics will never be the same. Rachel says, no shade to any of the previous live show guests, but this was the best GymCastic live show ever. So if you want to check it out, you still can watch for 2 weeks and go to gymcastic.com and click on the live show link to watch. And if you have any trouble, you can always reach out to GymCastic. What is it? Our customer service at gymcastic.com. And Fact Checker works tirelessly. My God, screenshots, like he will make sure you get to watch. Okay, NCAA finals. LSU won their first ever in the history of DD NCAA championship. Like me and Spencer have joked for years that if LSU ever won, like Dee Dee would just immediately like ascend to the heavens in like a glitter fountain. She didn't. She did have a purple glittery jacket on, and so that did happen. And, yes, and she came down to the floor and celebrated. And also shout out to Jay Clark, because he talked about how he's standing on the shoulders of all the women who laid the foundation for him to win. And I was like, that was the correct thing to say, Jay. That is right. You are standing on the shoulders of women who came, all the women that competed, all the coaches. He mentioned Suzanne, he mentioned Sarah, he mentioned Dee Dee, he mentioned Miss Val, he mentioned Greg Marsden. So also congrats to Stanford. The Stanford's men's team won their 5th consecutive NCAA championship. 5th in a row. So I feel like
insane.
It's crazy. 5 in a row. So this is like, this is as good as Georgia in the Suzanne Super Days, winning 5 in a row. So
that's amazing. And we watched some of it at the end. They looked so good. It's like incredible how good they are.
And this is why I'm just like, the women's team, like if the men can do it and they have to do 2 more events and they still have to get into Stanford, come on, you guys. Like, you guys can do it. You have the gymnastics to do it. They just need to like practice hitting earlier in the season. That's the one thing. You can't wait till regionals. The women
did finish 5th though.
Yeah. That's a very good point. They did they went from like 40th or something to finishing 5th. Like they clearly have the skills to do it. And they don't have a bunch of built-in deductions either. All right, so let's give if you guys missed, we did a live right after from Fort Worth, from the arena. We did a live right after we went to the press conference on Saturday after NCAA finals. So that's up for you to listen to. But now we're going to give our awards. So Olivia, let me hear your bests and worsts from NCAAs.
Okay. My best, and I know I'm going to say this, is that it is a new team that won the championship, because I, as a Michigan alum, am very proud of the fact that Michigan won in 2021 for so many reasons, but mainly because there's a new person, as Kathy said in the iconic line, when Michigan finds out, welcome to the club, the exclusive club. And so to me, another team joining, being the 8th team to join, is magical, and it just makes our sport better. It shows that there's improvement across the board. So to me, that was certainly my best of the whole weekend. I just think it was a Cinderella ending to a year that was so crazy in so many different ways, but to have it end this way was awesome. So that is certainly my best. And with that, we got a lot of drama, and I love drama. And so I say this all the time, and Scott Bregman and I tell each other this all the time, that we want drama, but not with our team. We didn't get that this year. We got drama with our team. But obviously, but I do, I crave drama in the sport because I think I said this on the live show too. It's just like in March Madness. People watch March Madness for the Cinderella story to come in and beat a Duke or beat a UK. And that's exactly what happened here. And so I'm so for that as my best for the weekend.
What is your worst?
My worst is inconsistent scoring. And that's a classic worst. Not because of like X team was overscored the whole time, X team was underscored. I only felt like there were a few very blatant inconsistencies. Andy Lee bars, there was this wrong with it, nothing, zero, nothing wrong with it. And I believe it went like 98875 or something. Just doesn't make any sense to me. And I know at that point, actually, let me take that back. At that point, there was a fall from LSU on beam. So at that point, Cal was hitting bars. They were not making it through bars. They were hitting bars. And I think that was just a bad scoring call. I would love a judge's summary, routine summary, to see what it was, because she finished that blindfold and handstand. That Jaeger is chef's kiss. So huge. So I just don't know what that was about. With inconsistent scoring, there were a couple LSU floor routines that I thought were a little inflated. I think we mentioned it on the live show, just like jumps back that were evidently more than a half tenth, and a half tenth was probably the only score taken. So there were just a couple moments where I was frustrated by the inconsistency of scoring. If it was going to be incredibly high or incredibly low, I don't care, as long as they were consistent. And I don't feel there were some moments where they were. I still feel that LSU should have won. I firmly do. But I think it should have been a teeny bit closer, is my
Not by 3
verdict.
tenths, I think was the final.
Yeah. I think it was closer than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree about that specifically.
What was tell me your best.
So my best was that this was probably, I think, like the most exciting final since, I think it was 2018, the Peng versus Oklahoma year, where it was like Oklahoma and UCLA were head to head and Oklahoma was just like killing it. And then Peng had to get like a 9-9 or a 10 on beam to win. And she did her flares and got the score. And it was like shocking that happened. It was that, I think this was as exciting as that, which was one of the most exciting NCAA finals I've ever watched. And it's just so nice when you don't know who's going to win. That's my favorite thing, when you don't know who's going to win. The worst part was like Oklahoma melting down. That was a bummer. But I mean, we knew Oklahoma was the only one that could beat themselves. And so they did. But the other worst, I think, was the NCAA just treating gymnastics like a second-class sport again. And that starts with when they announced the teams and they couldn't afford an Enya for Karina Munoz's name, and they never fixed it. I mean, that's so disrespectful. Imagine if that was name of a school that they spelled wrong. They never went back and fixed it. The fact that they took away the scores from in the arena at the end, so we couldn't see who won or who won by what or what the final score standings were. I always talk about this, like, this would be, and I know you're all gymnastics fans, so I don't have to do that, but like if suddenly they put a curtain down over the end of a swim meet so you couldn't see who arrived at the wall first, like it's insane to do that. And you can't see the scores from the floor. There's no other way to see them.
Right. Yeah, I'm bummed about that. I think I saw somewhere that Jay Clark and his team found out they won by holding up a phone and looking up the scores on the live stats. Like, come on, you guys. Like, I remember when Michigan found out, they were looking up. They had that moment to look up at the scoreboard and see Michigan go up. They should have had that. And while people can do the math and figure it out, just not the same. Not fair.
Yeah, I agree. It's just not
annoying.
Right. It's not treating the fans with respect. It's not treating the schools with respect. They deserve to be able to see what their scores are like everybody else and not have to get it on their phones. Yeah, I dislike that very, very much. So I would like the NCAA committee to get it together and treat it like a real sport, not like a reality show. Okay. Now let's give a shout out to the judges who did a great job and whom without these judges, we would not have a sport. We need judges. So which of the judges got it right? And what do you want to point out specifically?
So my got it right moment was Arkansas's Ristrotar's bars. It was a stunner. I was sitting right there. Every handstand hit. It was like, it's Lily Smith-esque. Like, I know we're going to like compare everyone to her, but like it was stunning. And she ended up placing, I don't remember what, she got a 9925. First was Davis with the 99625. Also, they got that right. Thank you for Audrey Davis first on bars. Yes, very true. So those were my two, the judges really got it right moments. Those two routines for me.
This reminds me, I want to give a shout out to the chalkography that some schools are using on bars. We remember the iconic Oklahoma chalkography of blowing the chalk out. But the snapping your feet together in handstand, making a chalk puff.
Are you thinking of Kaya Johnson? Because I'm thinking of Kaya Johnson. It was
yes. Yes. There is such a good picture if you go to GymCastic.com in Fact Checker. As you know, Fact Checker went to J school, has a degree, knows how to do all the things, write stories, code websites, photography, all the stuff he can do. So he is our photographer. Everyone's always shocked, like, these photos are so good. I'm like, yes, trained journalist in the house on staff. So anyway, there is a picture but there's a couple gymnasts from different teams that are doing it. And I don't know if it's intentional. Let's get chalk all over the inside of your ankles. But if you're not doing that right now, I would definitely start doing it because it looks great and it shows, boo, hey, yes, I hit vertical. You can see the poof at the vertical area. This is like where I left my poof. Fairy dust. Oh my God, you guys, speaking of which, 3 of the 84 Olympic team members were at the live show and came to surprise Kathy Johnson, and they talked about the fairy dust. If you don't know about the fairy dust and Roe Kreutzer, this is the picture that is now up if you're a visual listener. Yes. I love the chalkography of the feet. Why didn't someone think of this earlier? Maybe we just didn't have a great photographer who caught it before. I don't know.
I'm obsessed with the term chalkography. I'm totally using that.
Chalkography. It's like we have hairography that goes way back, hairography and NCAA floor routines. But there isn't a lot of hairography, unfortunately, on beam. And that's a place where it can be added back in. But we need to move, there's a lot of just like pull your ponytail straight up in the air. We need to move to new hairography, like maybe some flip the hair. Right. Some I don't know. I'm sure if you watch an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, you'll see exactly what we need from hairography. This is really what everyone should be doing.
Maybe they should put a connection bonus for hairography, like series to hairography 0.1. People will totally start doing it.
Yes. Okay, my judges award for getting it right goes to the vault judges. I was so happy. Anna Roberts from Stanford. I was happy with the placement as a whole. If you're a visual listener looking at a picture of it right now, like her hips are open. Her knees are completely straight. Her feet, in this picture, her feet are a tiny, tiny bit crossed. So that is not actually perfect, but she didn't get a perfect score. But it definitely was the best overall vault. And I feel like this is what's killed me about all season, is that people who have a slight bend of the hips, and I don't mean a hollow position, I mean their hips are bent and their knees are slightly bent. The scores were way too high for those. And so the fact that they actually got the champion of vault was absolutely correct is amazing. And I'm so happy that the judges got it right, as I was not happy last year with the judging, not the gymnasts. The gymnasts were amazing. And oh my God, they did fantastic. But I'm so happy with hips and knees. Oh, it's like the easiest thing to see. Forget about landings.
Her team freaked out when she won too. It was like one of those moments that you just want to frame and play on repeat. It just like made everything for me, hearing her team just absolutely go nuts when her name was called. I was like, oh, this is what I needed. I needed it.
And she also finished higher than Chloe Widner in the all-around for Stanford too. Yeah.
Club Gym Nerd. Get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, and extra podcasts every week, athlete dossiers, code guides, commission your own segments of the show. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at GymCastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
How did I find out my aunt drove a car into a convenience store when she was learning to drive? Or that my mom couldn't have her own credit card in her name because she was a woman in the United States? Yeah, these are some of the stories about my mom's life that I never get tired of hearing. Some are terrifying, some are shocking because of how women were treated when she grew up. But just in time for Mother's Day, I found the perfect gift that captures all the stories from my family forever. It's called Storyworth. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your mom or the mother figure in your life for years to come. Here's how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question that you help get to pick. Like, some of the ways that I got these answers are because I picked the questions: what was your funniest or most embarrassing moment that your family still tells about you? Or what was it like learning to drive? Storyworth makes the writing process a breeze. All your loved one has to do is respond to the email with a story, long or short, it doesn't matter. You'll be emailed a copy of your loved one's response as they're submitting one over the course of a year. You'll get to enjoy their retelling of the stories that you already know, or be surprised by some stories you've never heard before. After a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. You can even keep a copy of the book for yourself. My sister and I plan on getting copies made for the nieces and grandkids. And I just love that these stories won't be lost, that they can read these, and that I'll be able to revisit these and hear my mom's voice in these stories. Families love Storyworth. That's why it has more than 25,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago. Give all the moms in your life a unique, heartfelt gift you'll cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/GymCastic. That's storyworth.com/GymCastic and save $10 on your first purchase. Okay, shocking twist award. This might be upsetting or funny. Either way, shocking twist award for you.
So my first one is that in a season with tens galore and inflated scoring, we did not get 110 this weekend. Obviously, there were tens given, but there was not a full-blown 10 given to an athlete as a final score. That shocked me. And I think there were a lot of 995s and 99375s and whatever. So maybe the judges decided 995 was the 10 for the weekend and whatever. But I was stunned by this, because I think all year, all we saw was 10. All we saw were imperfect 10s. And let's be clear, I remember when I was a student athlete, I did a floor routine and I messed up a middle pass, started from a 9.8, ended up going 9.875. I mean, like, absurd stuff. But it's not the athletes don't want the 10. If it's not done right, don't give it to them. They don't want it. They don't want your 10 that isn't earned. And I was just shocked that we didn't get 110. I thought that there were routines that could have gotten it, and I was still pretty shocked that we didn't get one. So that's one of my shocking twist awards, that in this particular season we did not get a 10. My second one is Haley Bryant's bars dismount. That shocked me because she is always a land upright, like feet already glued together. She barely has like shoulder width with feet. Like she's ready to do that salute and run and celebrate with her team. I thought her knee was going to touch. I've never seen her under rotate that bars dismount like that. And to me, in the moment, I thought, my gosh, if that's what takes it from them, I will be stunned. And I'm glad it didn't, but I was stunned by that. I think everyone was a little bit. Everyone was just like, whoa, we have never seen her do that before. So that was it. That was an odd one for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What's interesting about LSU is they've always been so close, but there's always been some mistakes. They had mistakes on every event. They had KJ fall. They had, they had this landing with a big step, almost knee touch from Bryant. And then we're going to talk about what happened on beam in a second, because that's one of my awards. But yeah, it's like, you have to remember, this is why it's so important to never stop fighting. And I think this is one of the true lessons of sports that you carry in your life is like, don't give up, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when everyone else is going to fall. You never know when you're going to be the one that's still doing it. And you also never know when everything's going to come down to all 6 scores. And that's what breaks a tie. That doesn't happen in an NCAA final, but the rest of the season it happens. So it's one of those things to never give up. So my shocking twist award was Leanne Wong falling on beam, of all things. She practically gave birth to beam. She invented it. I was like, what? Like, forget people checking the vault height for when OU anarchied in their first session and had 4 falls on vault and took themselves out of it. Leanne falling on beam was more shocking to me, but I feel like she hasn't had a real like meltdown. And, you know, everyone has a meltdown in every season, right? It happens one way or another. But there's part of me that felt like she just fell because she was just like, oh, these routines are so easy. It's so embarrassing to do them. I can't wait to just go back to my elite routines. But I'm glad she got this out of her system before she starts competing back in elite later this year, very soon. I did want to talk about OU's shocking twist award, because obviously I think the number one shocking twist was that they took themselves out of it in the semifinal 2, along with Alabama just having tons of falls. And I want to play you guys what KJ said in her interview with me and Scott Wright, and someone from the Oklahoman, I think, is who joined us at the very end, about the season and what happened with them.
The Sooners are human, absolutely, and we have lived in the luxury of success for over a decade, and we have certainly worked for it, but on any given day, anything can happen, and this is a testament to that. This team is one of the most consistent I have ever coached. We haven't counted a fall all year. We counted 3 today. We basically counted. So that was kind of the, the wall falling down. Was, and perhaps we didn't miss enough. I know that sounds weird, but perhaps we didn't miss enough this year and weren't under enough pressure in moments that really mattered to rebound. You know, you just don't know. Losing can be very impactful on the growth of the team, and we were undefeated this year.
As an athlete, how did her quote about maybe they didn't have enough pressure, maybe being undefeated didn't prepare them for this? Like, you've been in these situations. What do you think of what she said?
I think it's spot on. I mean, you will never go into a competition with the goal of making mistakes to learn how to recover in a high pressure situation. But you want to think, and every coach will say it, do the same thing we do in the gym. Everyone knows that's not possible. When the lights are on, the leotards are sparkly, the fans are screaming, it will never compare to blasting silly music in the gym or distractions. It just never will. We all know that. And so what she's saying is so accurate in that they never had a moment this season where they needed to come back, pretty much climb the rope to fight for life, to remain in their season. And the quote she said of like living in the luxury of success is like brilliant. I mean, she's right. Like the Sooners they're incredible. And as much as people have their own problems with them and, you know, people think they look like robots and whatever, they're a fantastic gymnastics program. And this team in particular was like next level. And so to hear her say that, I assume, and again, I don't know KJ well at all, it leads me to believe that that's exactly how she leads at practice. But again, your assignment's never going to be make sure the first person falls so we can have a pressure set. You know, that's just not how you coach. But it is interesting when you think about this moment happening here, how you recover from it moving forward and what type of assignments you create and how you perhaps shape existing pressure sets to have a little more weight or a little bit of a different feeling to it. Or the student athletes who are part of this team, that doesn't leave you.
Yep.
That feeling will never leave you. I remember my freshman year at regionals. We started on beam, freshman, leadoff, fell. Third girl goes up, falls. Ended up coming back, great bar rotation, only missed nationals by a half a tenth, even counting a beam fall. That feeling never left me. And so it's truly a revenge tour for them because they will sit with that feeling for a very, very long time. I still sit with it today. And I was a freshman 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whenever I was a freshman. And so it's hard, but that's grace by her. I think she is a spectacular coach, incredible speaker, and just an advocate for sports. I mean, that's how you coach right there.
Yep. She's one of the few coaches that I'm like, I would pay for a leadership class or whatever. I would, yes.
100%.
I would totally. She's so good in these moments. Yeah, it's amazing. What's interesting to me about what she said too is it's one of the things that Simone has said camp lacks now. Like Simone obviously is a proponent of regime change, but it matters that you feel pressure so that when you feel it, you know you've already overcome it. And you're like, oh, these nerves, I know how to handle these. And I think we've seen that from the U.S. team, even though, you know, they continue to win here and there. That it's just not the same. They always said before there was more pressure at camp than there was in competition. So yeah. Okay. That Girl Award.
My That Girl Award is Leanne doing a literal choreography, sassy, like in-your-face 10-worthy floor routine in the last routine of the entire weekend when the Gators are very far out of it at this point. But she served. That routine was, when I talked about scoring earlier, that's one of the ones that could have gone 10 for me and I would not have been upset. It was so good. And her, like, you could tell she had felt no pressure, obviously. She didn't really care. She was angry about beam, and she literally went out there and slayed. It was so good, like incredible. I will need to go back and rewatch that a couple times because it was just like, I'm Leanne Wong and I will get a 10, even though my team's out of it, because that's just how we roll. That's how it felt to me.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So mine is Aaliyah Finnegan, closing it out for LSU on beam and having to hit. She really had to hit because it was so close. And like Regan Smith the year before for Oklahoma, hitting and winning, like Peng, that super exciting 2018 year where Peng had to get a 9.975. Those kind of moments I love. And also I love beam. So I love a good beam worker. Like it is a 4-foot high stage that's less than 4 inches wide. And I love it when people own it. And she absolutely owned it. I love that she was smiling before she did her dismount. I love that moment for her as just, you know, she's been through a lot. Her father passed away. Her Olympic dream didn't happen. And she just seems to absolutely be thriving at LSU. And I love that moment for her. And when I feel like, you know, things that stick with you forever, not making it will stick forever. But when you know you showed up in that moment when everything was on the line and everybody depended on you and you did it and not just for yourself. There really is something, you know, I love individuals the most, and I love individual gymnastics, but there is something when you know you showed up for other people, it feels so good to show up for other people and come through for them. So I loved that moment. It's something I'll remember for a long time. And her reaction to it too. And how good they looked in that white leotard, and how they broke the team white leotard curse. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not a thing anymore.
They looked incredible. And it was funny because you could tell some of the athletes weren't huge fans of it and some of them loved them. And I actually love that they kind of looked like snow princesses. Like, I kind of loved it. And I just thought, I don't know. It was very storybook for them. But yeah, watching her do that routine my heart was racing. I was like, it gave me, like, I remember talking to Abby High School after Michigan winning on beam and her they didn't have a fall, but again, she had to hit. And she was like, I completely just like, I blacked out. Like, I don't even remember what happened. And I bet Aaliyah would say something similar, but I knew after that triple series, I was like, oh baby, it's going down.
It's amazing how many gymnasts say, or athletes, like, don't remember. Their brain switched off and they just did what they have practiced a million times. Some because, you know, they had a severe concussion like Blaine Wilson in the Olympics. But other than that, yeah. It was great. Yeah. And I that leotard was really pretty, and it was double lined, which is the most important thing about a white leotard. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it kind of, you know, in general, I'm like, who would do that to them? But if it was their choice to wear a white Leo, that's different. And also, like, it reminds me, and I wonder if this is why I didn't read their behind the leotard thing that they do, which I really like. But, you know, some schools have that tradition of wearing white when you graduate. Like some women's schools do it for high school graduation. Women's colleges do it for graduation. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of reminded me of that. And I wonder if it was like an homage to their seniors who have really carried them through. Okay. Who was giving mother in this meet?
Well, when I looked at our notes, you stole mine. So I had to pick a different one.
Well, you can take mine because I can use the other one.
My initial one was Liz Crandall Howell. Was totally serving mother. I'm just obsessed with her. Her outfit was incredible. And just watching her coach is mesmerizing. Not to mention letting Gabby Perea throw the standing bull at the national championship. First time in program history. That's mother. For sure. My honorary mention, Ashley Natt's heels. With all those athletes jumping and hugging her, not a heel broke. She's jumping up and down. When you see in the background of Aaliyah landing and she runs and jumps to Aaliyah, that is not easy. So those heels are mother status.
Also that she wasn't wearing a spike heel or a very pointy heel. Like this is, that is respect to the equipment. You don't put holes in the foam. That's respect to the athletes. You need to have some base on your heel. Yes. And a lot of ankle strength. So shout out to her ankles. In honor of Skyla Schulte and the MSU team, and they're having yet another coach who is coming from the performance, Broadway, dance, ballet world into gymnastics, I'm going to give my award to Mike Rowe, the head coach of MSU. He understands the show, that sports are entertainment. He understands a team having a brand and all the athletes having part of that brand. Like when you watch MSU, you know you're going to see art in their routines. You know they're going to be doing great choreography. They're going to be doing the most. They're not just going to phone it in. So that is... I feel like he is another real up-and-coming coach. Like when we watched KJ at Iowa State, I was like, oh, everywhere she goes, things get better. Like Mike Rowe, I think you guys should get him a new gym and pay him more money. And whoever the choreographer is, and it might be him also, maybe get him just his own tanning machine. Because like he has to keep up this look. He shouldn't have to go out for it. Like, Mike, put that in your contract. Okay. Badass Skill Award.
So I already mentioned it, but the Gabby Perea standing fall. I mean, just, that is so badass. And wobbled on the front aerial, so goes back tuck, full off connection, and still does it. Like, that's badass. Like, that's amazing. So that for sure. And you talked about MSU, so I have to give my Big Ten girlies a shout out. Both Nikki and Skyla stuck their double tucks cold this weekend. Nikki off beam, Skyla front through double tuck off floor. Like, that is so satisfying, but also like they're doing hard gymnastics and they're sticking it cold. I'm so bummed Nikki wobbled on beam because like she does not like beam. She'd only competed beam like 3 times, does it regionals, qualifies, so funny. But I wanted that for her, but to see the stuck double tuck was like very satisfying. So those are my 2 like badass skill moments.
Yeah, I thought Skyla, I was like, oh, she's one floor now. Well, we'll get to that in a minute because I have a lot to say about it. So mine, obviously, you know how I love comedy and any opportunity for comedy. So Savannah Schoenhair at LSU, inventing a new skill on her final collegiate gymnastics routine, doing a shoulder roll forward to a sloth 360 from one side of the beam to the other under the beam. If only she had made it all the way up to a sitting position on the other side of the beam, that could literally have counted as her full turn skill at elite, because you can do a roll of any kind now. You don't have to do a full turn on one foot, sideways, forward, backwards, any kind of roll. I was like, this is amazing. If you could do that with straight legs, the FIG would take it in a minute. Go to a World Cup, Sav. This is great. The sloth 360, my favorite skill. And the fact that like she's already fallen. Like she did a freaking flip under the beam with her legs crossed, top trying to hold on. And the fact that she's still trying not to touch the ground like you do when you're like level 3 and you're like, I'm gonna get back on with one leg hooked over the top. I can do it. Don't touch, like the floor is lava. That she did that when she could have just put a foot down and like, hopped back on. I love that. And that you could laugh about it afterwards is great, because some people will be like devastated. That was my last routine. I can't believe that. But she has so much to be proud of. And it was hilarious.
It was hilarious. It's funny also because they won. Like if they didn't win, my heart would hurt for her and for that moment. But like I talked to her after the meet and I was like, you like to make things dramatic, don't you? She goes, yeah, I couldn't go out without some drama. I was like, I guess so. But it was great. I mean, my gosh, like that's an audible gasp I will never forget in the arena too, when everyone was just like, what just happened?
I mean, also the fact that she like whipped around the beam fast.
Beam
like
burn.
It wasn't, yes. It wasn't just like fall and you're hanging under the beam, which has happened to all of us. It was like she whipped around, which is another like, homage to her athleticism, really. And this is another reason why you don't put a mic attached to the underside of the beam like they did in Rio, and made me freaking nuts. This is why, like, because people at NBC listen. So I'm so glad that now they put the microphone in the beam legs padding, and it's much, much better. But here's another example. Even if it's not planned choreography, a sloth roll can happen. So, okay. My other badass skill is, I mentioned this before, but Courtney Blackson from Boise doing a Horkina, and it's huge, and her toes are pointed, and her legs could not go any more straight on that. It's such a beautiful skill. I just love her gymnastics. So, and everyone that did front head spring, like Raina Worley, KG Johnson. I love a head spring of any kind. Backward. Only people really shouldn't do the backwards, except for who did it. All-around champion LSU, blonde, was on the national team. Totally blanking on her name right now. But she did one backwards and no-handed, and it's terrifying. And she did it like on the grass, but she'd been doing it since she was little. She's one of those people, I'm sure, that saw it once and just did it. No one could tell her no because she'd already done it. But yeah,
I don't know
anyway.
if I like that, but the forward I'm here for. I'm here for the forward.
I love a head spring. beam, floor, anywhere. Vault, not so much, but it's happened.
Or bars that hurt.
Yeah. A head spring on bars when you've had a bad day. What happened today at practice? I did a head spring on bars. Oh, okay. So, do you need ice cream? A cookie? It didn't go well. Okay. It's Susan Jackson. Thank you. Oh my God, fact checker. You guys, this is how you know you've married the right man. When he becomes your fact checker, switches careers, and knows Susan Jackson. Okay, Olivia, who is your individual queen of the championships?
I think it's Audrey Davis. I mean, finally she wins bars. Was such a good routine. It's far superior. I mean, do I wish that she and Courtney Blackson tied? Yes. However, her bar routine was excellent, and winning beam in the leadoff, so good. Like, so well deserved. So proud of her. That she's definitely an individual queen of mine from nationals. And Miss Gabby Wilson, watching her do floor last on day one, she started really performing this like mid-season. Like MSU Michigan, I covered that meet. I was like, okay, we're dancing. Like before she can dance. She's a very natural dancer, but she was like putting in extra effort to dance, and it's carried through the rest of the year. And it was so good. So definite individual queen award for finishing her career last one up. That was great.
I agree. I have been kind of a on her floor because I was like, you know, she could do more. I can see that she can move. She could do more. And honestly, watching Raina Worley and Gabby Wilson in person, I was like, oh, there, which also makes sense because it's the beginning of season. Like, you don't have necessarily the cardio to do all your tumbling and get through really going all out in your choreo. So it makes sense that you get there by the end of the season. And those two made a big improvement of going all out in their choreo. And like, I know there's no excuse for bad cardio. I'll just, I always say that there really isn't. You have to do it. Even if you're hurt, you can do the arm bite, you can swim, whatever. But I like it just for your safety, first of all. But it is terrifying when you don't think you have it and you can't do your last pass because literally you could die. So correct. I understand. I have compassion for the scenario, even though there's no excuse for bad cardio. My individual queens, or individuals who competed without a team, Skyla Schulte from MSU, who's such a great dancer, such a great performer, always brings it. Since her freshman year, her gymnastics is just so consistent and excellent. And Shay Campbell on floor. I really thought Skyla, because she went at the very end, I thought, oh, that's it. She's going to get a 10 and she's going to win. Because she's actually doing all the dance and her execution is clean. Her tumbling landings are clean. And Shay, I know her tumbling is not as clean as Aaliyah Finnegan. This is the thing. Aaliyah Finnegan won floor, and her actual tumbling, double Arabian, knees together perfectly, pointed toes. Like, you can't take a deduction. And she has the amplitude even in the front pass. You can't take it. And I know Shay has her feet come apart a little bit, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden they're taking deductions in the air. Where was this the whole rest of the season? So Aaliyah is clean, but Skyla and Shay's dance and choreography is a level above. It is just a level above everybody else. It really is. And so I wish there was more. You can take an artistry deduction on floor. I wish there was more of that taken. Skyla ended up 14th. Shay ended up 18th. Yeah, I just feel like that's not the right even though I agree Aaliyah Finnegan had the best, cleanest tumbling. When you look at all the deductions you can take, I don't think it was right for them. Speaking of them coming in 14th and 18th, I mentioned this, College and Cocktails some, but I just think when you look at how the scoring ended up, and we talked about, yes, we think that in general, the right people won, the right teams won. The individual scoring is still a problem. And part of what illustrates that is that I estimated there's 42 ties in the individual standing. 42 ties between all the events and all around. 42 ties in the placement for individual events.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's not like, just for example, on vault, there was a 2-way tie for second, a 3-way tie for fifth, a 5-way tie for eighth. Like that is not, there's a 6-way tie for sixth on bars, an 8-way tie for third on beam, 8-way tie for second on floor. Come on. Like when the sport deducts by the decimal point and goes down to that, and you have even more of 8 judges, this should not be what's happening. So while there are real moments of exceptionally excellent judging, like on vault, for example, this should not be the standard. And it also shouldn't be the standard that suddenly we're deducting for what happens in the air only when we get to NCAA championships. Like we need a higher standard. And I hope that there's some motivation to change this. And by motivation, I feel like someone needs to fix it. Like, no one likes to talk about Tom Farden, but the way Tom Farden got regionals to be at that place in Utah, it's basically Utah adjacent, not a home meet, but basically a home meet for Utah, was he went and found a location that could do podium and secured it for the NCAA. That's how you do it. So if we want to fix judging, we need someone to be like, hi, I have this much money. You put the label of my company on everything, and I will pay for the evaluation system that you can now get from the FIG to be used in NCAA gymnastics. And everyone can be on the same playing field. It's way more fair for all the judges because all the judges know that they are all being evaluated equally the same way and not just on how a certain coach feels. So more fair for everyone, protects judges as well. So yeah. Let's hope there is. Was there anybody out there who is like, I love data and I want to put my brand on this? Get in touch. I'll put you in touch with the right people.
If you don't want to bother with the whole joining Club Gym Nerd thing, you can just give us money. Check out the no strings attached donate button at the bottom of the Join the Club page at gymcastic.com/club.
We have some GymTernet news. So the Department of Justice has settled for $138.7 million to be distributed between 139 claimants that are Nassar victims. So total, the Associated Press is reporting this is $1 billion settlement. So this is all the things, MSU and the FBI and DOJ and USA Gymnastics and insurance companies, all of it together. So this is good progress. There's people who've been waiting for this, and especially pointing at how the DOJ handled this. And I can just say, from talking to people who work within systems, who work within the mandatory reporter system and law enforcement, the impact that this has had on how things are handled in reports of abuse with coaches, it has changed how it's handled. Things are happening way faster. People are taking it much more seriously. There are actual consequences. When people do not report, people in law enforcement don't report in their mandatory reporter window, there are immediate consequences for them in the kind of professions where I thought no one would ever get fired. So you all of the survivors have made an impact, and you're making a difference, and you're making things better for the next generations. So know that. USA Today's Nancy Armour revealed that Suni told her she had not 1, but 2 kidney diseases. So Nancy said, quote, "If I had not gotten the other kidney disease, they wouldn't have found out I have this kidney disease until later, when I had stage 4 kidney failure." Yikes. Stage 4 kidney failure. I didn't realize it was that bad. That's super severe.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. Yeah. I didn't know it was that bad either. It's amazing she's able. This is just one of the things, like, elite athletes are not normal human beings. Like, most people couldn't function, and she's doing gymnastics. It's amazing. Simone Biles, you might have heard of her, has won yet another award, the 2024 Lazarus World Comeback of the Year award winner, which well deserved to her. I don't know if you heard, but track and field is starting to give, like, the actual track and field global, whatever they're called for track and field, like the FIG, but for track and field, they are now giving direct prize money to athletes. And so we wondered if the FIG would start doing that. But FIG was like, no, we're not doing that. We are not. We will not be doing that. Thank you very much. And I'm like, come on, you guys. I hope that there's more of this, because honestly, I understand that if, for example, the president of the FIG, you're maybe home like 3 days out of the whole year. You travel nonstop. It is a thankless job with, it's just, you never have a private life. Everything is, on you. But having said that, the athletes that got you there should be making at least some small percentage of what you make, I think. Yeah. I would like to see that go up. But yeah, Watanabe said, no, we're not doing that. I don't know if you caught this. There's a little bit of kerfuffle this past week because Curran Phillips withdrew from World Cup. And Sykes Caesar, his coach at Evo, said that he decided to withdraw from the World Cup in Doha because USAG's policy is, quote, no medical is to be sent with fewer than 3 athletes at an international event. This was not communicated to us in advance. So Curran withdrew, and I think people were kind of giving Curran a hard time about this. So I don't know that Syke specifically was calling out. I mean, Syke said he was not specifically calling out USA Gymnastics. He was more protecting his athlete by saying, listen, he made the decision based on medical. He's not just like ditching a World Cup event.
Right.
So I contacted USA Gymnastics and asked for a statement on this. And I specifically asked, what is this policy? Do you plan on changing it? And here's what they said. Quote, sending medical to World Cups events in any discipline with 3 or more U.S. athletes competing has been an operational practice for several years, at least 5. This practice is an expansion of what has been done in the past. USAG formally did not send medical to World Cups events. Our travel budget for medical increased 214% from 2019 to 2023. Rather than reduce the number of World Cups to accommodate budget limitations, we are able to give athletes the option to compete, totally at their discretion, understanding that delegations of 1 or 2 athletes won't have additional medical support. Many athletes decide to compete. For example, Curran competed in Baku last year and Alex Diab competed in Cairo in 2022, end quote. So I think the one thing I can say about this is, like, I keep thinking, if Suni, with her medical issues as the all-around champion, would you really have not sent medical with her? Would you not have made an exception? There is, of course, medical staff at every World Cup. And I think it's, in some countries it's a little harder because, say your coach is a man, you're in Doha, you go to the hospital, but men cannot come. The hospital sections are separated by women and men. So that is something to consider. But I have, one of the things USAG has said for the last couple of years is they really want to send more athletes to World Cups. And we have not had that in the past. We've always been like, why can't people go and get the skill named after themselves? Like, why? And so I have to say, like, it is a huge improvement that athletes have more options to go to World Cups than the past. But, you also have to respect people's decision not to go if they don't feel comfortable with the medical situation. You don't know the specifics of anyone's, why they'd really want their trainer there, their doctor there for a specific competition as opposed to years past. So the Wall Street Journal, did I already mention this? Wall Street Journal mentioned us about our fantasy league. I did. Okay,
so good. Exciting though. I'm like so here for that.
Me too. It's very, very exciting. The All Japan Championships, you might have heard of this one guy named Hashimoto Daiki. He has taken the 4th straight title. He's also an Olympic champion. Probably going to make this Olympic team too. He's doing okay for himself, that Hashimoto Daiki. Yeah, casual, Japan continues to dominate in men's gymnastics. In historically Black college HBCU history, Morgan Price has won the first ever collegiate national championship title. So it's the first ever for an HBCU gymnast because the HBCU's teams have only been around for like 2 years. So huge historic victory for Morgan Price. And Morgan Price, of course, was a major recruit. Lots of teams wanted her, and she decided to turn those down and go to FIS. So congratulations to her. And Max Whitlock, Olympic great, Olympic champion, who this will be his 4th Olympics, I think. Pommel horse superstar. Did try for years to do the air flare on pommel horse. He tried. He showed us a little video of doing it. We ask him every year. He's finally given up. He's like, you guys, I tried it a million times. It's not worth it. I was like, I understand. Also, you're like, you know, however old he is. You're in your 30s. The air flare on pommel horse is a young man's game. You know, you can only break your finger so many times if you're a pommel horse specialist. So he has announced that he's retiring after Paris, but he is as motivated as ever, but he's retiring. And obviously very understandable. What a great career. We do have some letters and feedback. And if you have any feedback for us, you can always drop it to us at gymcastic.com. Email us, gymcastic@gmail.com, or you can go on the forum and put it in the forum as well. So the first letter we have from Nikki is thoughts on Jay live show bucket list. Olivia, would you like to read a letter?
Yes, I would be happy to read a letter. I brought my LSU alumni mom, and we hung out around the team after they won at Toro Toro. What I didn't know until I saw it in person and heard it from gymnasts and parents is how much they genuinely love Jay. It was so evident that Jay had a bond with not only the gymnasts, but also their families. It was refreshing and a super healthy feeling, if that makes sense. This was not my experience growing up as a gymnast. I loved what I witnessed. By the way, this was my first NCAA championships, and the live show was the time of my life. My mom called it a bucket list moment. That's adorable.
Yay! I love that so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, I think for a lot of people, that live show was a bucket list. I mean, including myself, I've been trying to get Kathy Johnson for years, but her ESPN schedule always made it impossible. But it also took some convincing to get her to do it. And like, also shout out to our volunteer staff. And some of them like couldn't make it in the end, but like everybody that helped plan that show and helps pull it off every year. And a bunch of them will be at our live show at the Olympic trials too, because they are amazing. So shout out to all of them. Okay. Next letter, championship thoughts from Absolutely Not.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think they train for wedgies, or is that what the entire regular season is for? A happy KJ Johnson is quite possibly the scariest thing on earth. There is no word in any human language for a pissed off KJ Johnson. Why isn't everyone on Florida wearing a wongbo?
Okay, I feel like because they're not like toddlers.
I have never heard it be called that. That is so funny. Oh,
now all I can think
God.
of is like the pasta that's that shape. A wongbo,
Oh,
like a
bow tie.
You know what I mean? A bow tie pasta.
Yes.
All the Italians listening are like, oh, it's not called a bow tie, it's a bow.
Yeah.
Oh, that was probably offensive to all the Italians listening too. But anyway, you guys, pasta. It's delicious. Okay. All right. Wongbos.
Cal wins the Glitterati Award for exceptional sparkles. Couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah.
LSU wins the loudest fans award. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Someone check the height of the floor. The floor.
Is that because...
Are we back on the KJ Johnson situation?
Yeah, maybe. Probably.
Maybe. I need the teams to coordinate their Leos better. 3 teams with matchy Leos makes the people in the cheap seats with crappy old people vision SADS with a Z. Incredible. Spectacular comment.
Really? There were too many Leos that looked the same. I was like, you guys.
There were a lot that looked the same. 100%. I should not have had that coffee. Spaz. Feel that. Gilstrap done Freddie Mercury proud.
Oh my God. I love that routine. And the other one, is it McKenna Smith that does the disco routine for Utah? I'm blanking. You know, I can't remember anyone's names. But anyway, I love the disco routine.
I love it.
Disco always works for floor. It's a perfect compliment. You can't go wrong.
I agree. Okay, we're Gilstrap. No one tell Miley that her parents probably made out to La Bamba at their respective proms.
That's her floor music. It was very popular in my high school days. So just to let you know.
I mean, she probably consulted with her parents. I mean, not about
it was an homage to their prom.
Clearly. I, having the attention span of a special needs gnat, am made for a simultaneous 4-event situation. I actually think that the 2 at a time, I liked it. Maybe I'm in the small.
I want 1 at a time. There's plenty of time to do 1 at a time.
Also true. One of my God-given skills, the Z, is breaking things. This is one of the things that makes me an exceptional engineer. However, I must give my apologies to Oklahoma, the weather in Texas, and Leanne Wong's beam for ruining everything.
Oh, actually, you guys, I have some comment on ruining everything. It actually was not you. Let me read some facts right here. So, in 2018, the NCAA would not give Spencer a credential. And that's when Oklahoma lost. In 2021, there was no media at all allowed at NCAA championships because it was right before the whole world shut down for the pandemic, and Oklahoma lost. And then, of course, this year, Spencer is sick and Oklahoma lost. So it's actually Spencer's fault that all of this has happened. There was a rift in the gymnastics continuum. So it's not you. Absolutely not. Don't worry. Spencer accepts blame.
Poor Spencer. Okay, next, someone check the vault height for the love of God, all caps, 3 exclamation points. I think everyone in the arena thought that.
Apparently, this is called grammar abuse. Have you heard this before?
All caps?
When you use like a lot, question mark, exclamation, question mark, explanation, exclamation point. I just learned about this because my friends accused me of it. And I feel very attacked because I am a very passionate person who has things to say, and I can't express that without the use of many of the exclamations and question marks and
that's
capitals. Right. So abuse shamoose. That's what they're there for. That's what I say.
Agreed. Everyone should get a standing ovation at least once in their lives. Couldn't agree more. And the final one, congrats LSU, holy balls, I need a drink.
And with that, amen.
Yeah, pretty much.
I want to thank Liv so much for joining us today and for saving the day this weekend at NCAA Championships and filling in. Spencer's going to be kind of in and out, so you may see Liv again. We'll see. But we'll definitely see you guys this Saturday after American Classic concludes, and hopefully we will see Gabby Douglas, Olympic champion, compete for the first time. So we see you guys live then. And remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Set them to automatically download so you don't get stuck without Wi-Fi traveling somewhere and can't listen. And until Saturday after American Classic, please remember to take off on gay, split on rights. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Saturday.